Good afternoon and welcome to the Rules, Elections, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. I'll be chairing the committee today. Council President Martinez had an obligation to attend to. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We have quorum. Mr. Buscaino and I are both here. We will be taking public comment prior to the discussion of today's agenda items. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Martinez, absent. Councilmember O'Farrell?
Present.
Councilmember Buscaino?
Here.
2 members present and a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. And Mr. City Attorney, could you please explain the speaking rules? And Madam Clerk, please go over the call-in instructions for the public to dial in.
Thank you. Members of the public who would like to offer comment on the items listed on today's agenda should call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-593-4341 and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak. Thank you.
Members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you'd like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item. You have 1 minute per item to speak up to 2 minutes total, and 1 minute for general public comment. Please speak to the items before general public comment. We'll tell you when your time's up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not on topic, or if you can't tell whether you're on topic, you'll get one brief warning from me or the chairman. If you don't immediately get clearly on topic or again straight off topic, you'll forfeit the rest of your speaking time. We'll move on to the next speaker. As a committee meeting, all of these items are open for public comment. As you were told, when it's your turn to speak, an automated Zoom voice will prompt you to press *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't do so, committee staff will prompt you once more. At that point, if you don't unmute yourself and tell us which items you want to speak on, you'll forfeit your speaking time or we'll move on to the next speaker. Finally, if you're also listening to this committee meeting on your computer, channel 35 or other device, please turn down the volume on those devices immediately when it's your turn to speak, because the feedback and a time delay between the live meeting and the broadcast really causes a lot of confusion if you continue to listen on those other devices. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we are ready to begin public comment.
Thank you so much. Let's bring in the first caller.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
All general items and public comment.
You have 2 minutes for the items and followed by 1 minute for general. Please stay on topic and go ahead, speaker.
It's been a long time, Father. You look fatter today.
Please agenda items, speaker.
Well, I'm trying to read. I'm a pig. I'm trying to read. Yes, the DWP. They want to have an ethics code. It is so funny. Ethics and the DWP. It's like a pig surrounded by a pack of wolves. Who has a chance to improve? Nobody. This is because of the FBI, no?
Yes, it is.
And am I on topic?
Oh, definitely.
Yes, the FBI is the DWP's favorite target of the day. Apparently, one of the commissioners who got involved in the pool in the DWP had an accident. Joey Bucket Buscaino has a report for that. He will tell you all about it. It's very interesting. Yes, it's amazing when people who fuck with the DWP all of a sudden have accidents. Now we get to number 1. I can't find anything wrong with number 1.
What?
No, it looks like something good is happening. I cannot believe that the city council could do something right on number 1, but I think it's a very good thing. Making contractors live and work in the city of Los Angeles. What a good idea. Who came up with that?
Goat puppet.
Yes, thank you to my puppet colleague, Goat Puppet. He came up with the idea, yes. Now I get to my general public on
go
us
ahead.
flopping people? Oh, good. Where the hell is Nuri Martinez, that big fat slob? How come she's not here to take public comment from all of her believers and followers? She continues to hide from us. She continues to go in the back and gorge herself with delicious treats in that refrigerator back there, which at 3:30, Monica Rodriguez is going to get the refrigerator for everybody too. She's eating too much. I'm worried about Nuri. She could explode from all the fat in her ass.
We're not talking about anything within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee at this point.
Yes, but we're talking about the good health of these big fat
Yeah,
slobs.
cut him off.
So
He's done.
Your
no,
time is
that's
up,
not
Penny
fair.
K.
No,
Thank
Okay.
you, Speaker.
Do we have any additional speakers?
The queue is cleared.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We will now close public comment. It has been satisfied for this hearing. Mr. Buscaino, I'd like to take items 2 through 10 on consent unless you have any comments or questions.
I'm good with that. Move
You're
those
good
up.
with that? Okay. Items 2 through 10 on consent shall be the order without objection. We can call the roll for the record.
Councilmember Martinez, absent. Councilmember O'Farrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
2 ayes. The items 2 through 10 are approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if we could please read item 1 into the record.
Thank you. Item 1 is a city attorney report, ballot resolutions, and ordinance relative to placing a charter amendment on the ballot at the city's June 7th, 2022 primary nominating election, which will authorize the city on a competitive bid city contract to award a bid preference to a bidder located in the city of Los Angeles.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I believe we have joining us today for presentation and or questions are Ms. McGlinchey from the Bureau of Contract Services, Harit Trivedi and Denaya Manassian from the City Attorney's Office, Chris Espinosa and Brian Randall from the CLA's office, and Jimmy Pack and Sofia Anguiano from the City Clerk's Office.
And also Jaime Suarez from the City Attorney's Office.
Oh, Mr. Suarez, thank you so much. Did I miss anyone else? All right, thank you. So do we have a presentation? And if so, please begin.
I can start it off.
Okay.
Before you today are the ballot resolutions and election ordinance necessary to place a proposed charter amendment on the ballot for the upcoming June election. As you know, the city charter provides that competitive bid contracts shall be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. However, Section 371A of the charter allows the city to provide a bid preference to a bidder located in the state of California or the county of Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the charter currently does not allow the city to award a bid preference or to limit a bid preference to a bidder located within its own jurisdiction. The proposed charter amendment would free the city from this restriction. If approved by the voters in the June election, the proposed charter amendment would open the door for the city to be able to move forward, to be able to award or limit a bid preference, not just to businesses located in the state or the county, but to businesses located here in our very own city. With that said, Harit and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Terrific, thank you. Just a few questions that I'd like to run through. This is probably an obvious one, but if ballot measure, if approved, how does it make the bidding process easier and more streamlined, perhaps?
What this charter amendment would do, it would remove the restriction from the city to be able to then be able to award a bid preference to a City of Los Angeles firm. But this is just the first step. In order to be able to actually grant a preference, the council will need to adopt and approve an amendment to the local business preference program. I don't know if you recall, but our office amended that ordinance last summer. So once, assuming the voters of the county, of the city approve the charter amendment, then the next step would be to amend the local business preference program. And based on the policies and whatever structure the council wants to structure it, then we would work on amending it accordingly.
Thank you. So it seems that it would simply, the process would be exactly the same as it currently is, with the exception of removing the restriction, which is pretty much the objective of the initiative. Thank you. And then do we foresee that this ballot measure, if it passes, could create new opportunities for us, the city, to engage more small businesses that aren't currently part of the bidding process?
I believe that question is probably more appropriate for BCA, or
Is that a factor, in other words?
Good afternoon, council members. We don't necessarily know at this point exactly how much it would impact. However, if we were to amend the local business preference ordinance to include a preference for businesses located within the city, obviously there could be potential greater benefit to our city businesses versus the businesses currently getting the benefit that are located in the county.
Terrific. And then, I mean, it's kind of implicit, but I just wanted to double check. I mean, that's the intent of the initiative. And then, so in terms of if this is approved by voters, can we foresee how this new program could primarily benefit women and minority-owned businesses? And are there any perceived changes in the bidding process in general with what is before us today, should voters approve it?
So since the ordinance is for a local business, we don't look at whether or not those local businesses are women or minority owned. And as a result, I can't really speak on how much of a benefit that may result in. We have had preliminary discussions on the potential for, if the ballot measure is approved, for adding an additional preference to our current preference that's specific to the local city certified businesses.
that's correct. We still have Prop 209 restrictions that are not affected by this charter amendment.
Okay, and Mr. Fuscaino?
No, happy to support this item. In fact, I recall one of my first 245 was when I first got here. It was directed towards the airport when a non-city entity was awarded the Wi-Fi contract, if I recall. And I was like saying, why aren't we actually? There's got to be some preference for businesses that reside in the city of LA. So happy to see this come here before us, and happy to support the item. And I guess we got the charter change, and hopefully we give the will of the people will be supported moving forward.
And I'm just wondering if as Ms. McGlinchey just mentioned, if there's space within, right now it only lists local businesses, if it could be further defined to benefit traditionally overlooked business opportunities.
So as Mr. Suarez mentioned, when we revised the local business preference ordinance last summer. We did expand it, so it is a local business preference with additional preference opportunities for businesses that are certified as local small businesses or local transitional employers, which we have defined as employers both for-profit and nonprofit that hire or advocate for disadvantaged people.
It's probably a pretty fine legal line that we have to deal with in this. So, okay, well, thank you. So I think there are no more questions. So if we could please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Martinez, absent. Councilmember O'Farrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino,
Aye.
2 ayes. This item is approved.
Mr. Chair, Mitch, do you mind if we reconsider items 6 and 7? I do have comments for those items.
Not at all. Let's reconsider.
Thank you.
So let's actually take a roll call vote to reconsider. Sorry,
All right.
You should do that.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez, absent. Councilmember O'Farrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino,
Aye.
2 ayes. Items 6 and 7 are before the committee.
Thank you.
All right. Let's read the items, please. 6.
Item number 6 is a resolution, Buscaino Price, relative to including in the city's 2021-2022 federal legislative program support for House Resolution 145, which calls for a federal job guarantee program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution comes before us at a perfect time as we honor the legacy and celebrating the immeasurable contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King. I do want to recognize one of my pastors in Watts, Shane Scott, who brought this bill to my attention, and happy to support it moving forward. Now, we, as we know, have made great strides as a society since the time Dr. King, but much thanks to his efforts, we all know that certain communities are still marginalized. Individuals of color and differences still face more challenges than others, and the economic devastation of the pandemic only exacerbated these problems. In response to those who continue to face discrimination in our society, particularly among the times of economic hardship, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley introduced a simple resolution last year in Congress which recognizes the duty of the federal government to create a federal job guarantee for our most vulnerable. Specifically, HR 145 calls for funds to be directed to local employment offices in the communities that need it the most, and it would be the first step in providing assistance to the economically distressed and establishing a basis for an equitable economic recovery. A federal job guarantee would provide a road to stable work and begin to address the wage gap for African Americans, Latinos, Indigenous peoples, women, people with disabilities, and beyond. So I believe it's time for the federal government to fulfill Dr. King's dream. But let's start by guaranteeing good jobs for everyone. And so I ask for your support, Mr. O'Farrell.
You got it. You know, this is a great support measure, especially considering some of the Civil Rights Act of the 60s have been chipped away by the Supreme Court since 2013. So we need to do all.
I find it still hard to believe that Congress has failed on this for decades.
Yeah, these are interesting times.
Yep.
So I wholeheartedly support. So let's call the roll.
Councilmember Martinez, absent. Councilmember O'Farrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino,
Aye.
2 ayes. Item 6 is approved.
Thanks for your leadership, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you for that.
And that brings us to number 7.
And Mr. O'Farrell, you know, we've talked about the importance of calling out county, state, federal government to really elevate the need for more funding for those suffering from mental illness. And we know that we can't have a conversation rather about homelessness without also discussing mental health. Some fall into homelessness as a result of mental health issues, but even for those who become homeless for other reasons, living on the streets is a highly traumatic experience, as we've seen right before our eyes. And it develops or worsens mental health issues and addiction for nearly everyone experiencing homelessness. And if we don't provide the resources and beds for these individuals specifically, we're looking at more of the same in our future, an endless loop of suffering and death on our streets. The number of homeless individuals with acute mental health issues increases every year. A recent study by the California Policy Lab found that 1 in 5 unhoused people in LA County have a diagnosis of serious mental illness. You know this well, Mr. O'Farrell. He's one of our leading advocates for the mentally ill throughout the city and county. I appreciate what you've done in elevating this discussion and demanding the state government, county government to move quickly on longer term cares for the mentally ill. It's also estimated that there are less than 2,000 subacute beds in the county where patients can temporarily live with psychiatric care provided. That's ridiculous. That's shameful. That's less than a third of what we really need. It's embarrassing. The federal, state, and county governments are all failing us and endangering lives. And as you know, being local leaders, they come to local government to fix all the ills of society. So I ask for your support, Mitch, in this resolution calling for desperately needed funding to allow LA County to meet the number of subacute beds needed and recommended by health experts. These are health experts who say 50 beds for every 100,000 residents suffer from mental illness.
All great points, Mr. Buscaino. And not only is 2,000 subacute beds not enough, as our CAO told us last year, the county can't even give us one of those beds on any given night.
Yep.
And I had a meeting with some of the managers of one of my sites, and I'll just kind of leave it vague like that. And dealing with the unhoused population that we've brought indoors to receive services. Well, the county isn't giving them any services. They're not getting any addiction services. They're not getting any mental health services from the county. And city voters are what put Measure H over the top to go in 2017. The county is refusing to go to the site and provide the services, and most of the clients there are using. So they're just derelict in their duties. LASA is doing nothing about it. So this is really, don't know why this issue isn't getting more coverage. It's and it's unacceptable. So, Mr. Buscaino, as you know, we've talked about this, and most of our colleagues are on the same page that something has got to be done. So, resolutions like this, some of the motions and some of the initiatives that we've got going, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to expose this gross failure and inability or refusal for some of our partners to step up and do their jobs that they're contractually obligated to do in relation to the largest, most important issue of the day, and that is homelessness and putting people on a path to wellness.
Yep.
We're on our own, but we're paying for services we're not receiving.
Right.
So
I'm happy to hear the governor and other state leaders now push on more conservatorship and something we've also talked about on reforming mental health and redefining gravely disabled, as we talked about, till our face has been blue for years. And unfortunately, I think you're going to see, Mr. Chair, the ongoing death and destruction by those who are mentally ill, who are attacking the most vulnerable because they're just not in the right mind frame. We're going state to state, as we saw in Brianna's killer, alleged killer, and seeing the rap sheet there. Just recent news that broke before the committee started. Unfortunately, I would say expect more.
yes, and I have a site that has 22 people who want the help that we're housing, and they have addiction issues. And God love the service providers because they're giving them all they can.
Mm-hmm.
There's one key ingredient missing, and that is county health services, because they've chosen not to participate, even though they're contractually obligated to. We got problems. So thanks for bringing this to the attention.
Thank you.
Solution. And with that, let's please read the item, Madam Clerk, and then we'll call the vote.
Thank you. Item 7 is a resolution Buscaino-Lee relative to including in the city's 2021-2022 state legislative program support or sponsorship of legislation or administrative action for the state to allocate funding to allow Los Angeles County to meet the number of beds recommended by mental health experts, 50 public beds per 100,000 residents. And calling the roll, Councilmember Martinez absent, Councilmember O'Farrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
2 ayes, this item is approved.
Thank you. And what else do we have before us today?
The desk is clear.
All right, with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
meeting adjourned.
Thank you.